Oh, hello everyone. Good morning or good afternoon or whenever you're checking in here. It's Jim. I want to talk to you today about the slotted unit construction project that I've given to you, and I want to go over some of the steps I've taken to do just that. This project. So, the first step of this is, of course, to create a maquette of something that you can eventually create multiple sculptures of, right, in a small scale, and then we'll photograph those with the camera, so if you're as if you were walking through the space, right, and maybe we can simulate that experience of going through a sculpture garden, right? But first, you want to come up with a construction technique or idea or something that you can then expand into multiple pieces. So I think when I sent the PDF out, if you've checked that out, you see Calder's a great example of a sculptor who uses certain motifs and creates multiple uh, sculptures from. The Noguchi, also another great artist to look at for sort of a slotted unit construction thing. This construction method, is often used in things like toys and furniture, even architecture, right? It's a great way to put things together um, and disassemble, right? So let me talk a little bit about how I approach this. So this page here are my doodles for things to do, and frankly, this one here was the first doodle I did. Started trying to do things based on flowers and things in my garden, right? Sort of a spin-off of the pop-up book that, by the way, I'm still working on. So it was hard to show it to you. So anyway, so this was the first doodle, and then it expanded into a second doodle, and and so on. But the first thing I constructed was something that's sort of straight out of that pop-up book thing. So I don't know if you remember, I was working on all these iris pop-up forms in class. I thought, maybe I could do something with that, this as a three-dimensional structure, and came up with this thing. And you can see, I'll turn it sideways to the camera so you can kind of see what's going on. The It got really kind of complicated in how to make it stand up. And so this base, it's an interlocking base. I don't know if you can see from the bottom. You can certainly see all the little slots and other units that go in to lock it together and to create a base strong enough to hold this tall um, uh, form of the iris, right? So looking at that, I thought, well, it's a little too complicated, and the one thing that's really holding it up is this little bent piece of paper that goes up and moves through this plant, form, and is holding it up. And a little bit of breeze coming through the window is going to knock it over. Right? So I thought, okay, I need to maybe abstract the idea of plants and come up with something a little easier to construct and a little more uh, less confusing and complicated to look at. So I went back to this form here, which was a takeoff on a sunflower, and came up with this unit here. So that's the base. But this is a pretty simple construction. It's just two pieces with slots in them. I've got a slot here and a slot here in the top of this one, and they just they interlock. You see, you put them together this way, kind of come together. So just pull it down, and it is a freestanding piece. It's I have to, instead of moving the camera around, I'll just turn it sideways so you can see, how it goes together. You kind of have to adjust it. By the way, it's made out of paper that I glued. It's like a flocking material to the paper on both sides. It really gave it a neat texture and some cool colors. I don't know about you, but I was looking at this project thinking, what am I going to do and what do I have to work with? And so I was looking around the studio, and last semester I bought some flocking that was going to be on that little wooden book that I had made that I think I showed you early in the semester, that locked together with magnets, right? And so I ordered this material online, and it's an adhesive. So let me see, I've got some here in a drawer. I'll show you what it looks like. So I had this in the studio, and you just peel this paper off here, and you'll end up with an adhesive you can glue down to the paper, and then self-adhesive and pretty easy to do. So and it gave me some really kind of fun colors to look at. You can see how the light comes through parts of it, and so it made it very much like a child's toy. But I thought it might be nice sitting in a base, so I created a base, and just to keep it sort of locked together, right? It'll sit down in that base, if a little bit of effort, and there you have it. So so that was that one. So I found that pretty exciting. I thought, okay, great. What's the next flower I'm going to abstract, right? So I was looking around in my garden, and I have this succulent that sends out these long fronds, right, with a bright purple flower on the end. And okay, how am I going to do that? So then I came up with this thing, and it holds together pretty well. So you can see here's the slotted units, and this one, fits into this, just slides into a slot that was cut into the leaf form there. I cheated a little bit, so don't be afraid to improvise. There's a wire inside the stem here, and the wire goes down into the base and bends. And by the way, let me see, grab a pencil here. If you decide to do that, so this, if we're looking at the bottom of the base and the wire coming through it, the wire bent at a 90-degree angle, but that won't really do the trick. So then you need to also bend the wire so it sort of loops around like this, so it won't flip over, right? So that wire's in there pretty firm. And there's two pieces of cardboard, right? Or actually in this case, foam core board, this stuff here, that are sandwiched together, glued together to keep the wire from popping out. So that'd be the wire coming through the base, this being the base. And you want to bend the wire 90 degrees and then loop it around. And so it's in contact with the base. These two fronds too, I let them go through the base as well, and they flip over. So there was a slot that these leaf forms are coming through, and then they bend over like that. So on either side, pretty simple. A couple slots go through. The base comes together, holds everything in place. Of course, I wouldn't be able to disassemble this one. It's a fairly permanent thing, and I kind of like it, but not that sophisticated, I don't think. But I got inspired by these leaf forms though, and that brought me to something that was really kind of fun. But before we go on to that, let me show you this thing. And we're talking about slotted unit constructions. At one point, I was going to create something that surrounded things coming up out of the base, or something like this, looped and then locked into a base, right? So the two ends would go down into a slot on the base, create this arc, and then coming out of it, I was going to have these flowers. It's still, possibility, right? But I was thinking, you know, as a demonstration for very simple locking form, just take the paper, you know, create the slots, put together this way. Now, if you move the slots down and maybe you had multiple slots, it would lock together a little nicer, right? But in this case, it creates kind of an interesting foot and stands up. So something to consider. So anyway, now back to the spin-off of the fronds that I had on this piece here, right? So these shapes here, I got kind of turned on by those organic shapes in the way that the leaves grow off of one, you know, sort of build off each other. So I came up with this. So I created some organic shapes and then covered them with felt, right? Actually, kind of like this one. It's the simplest one. And then started decorating them with other pieces of felt. I just just sort of had some fun with it. Created a couple small ones in case I needed some extra support. But what's neat about this, it becomes like a something of a puzzle, right? And oh, by the way, the slots. I was thinking of the slots, and instead of a straight slot, what if this slot became part of the form, right? So was able to create numerous slots, numerous places that something in it could lock into, and you know, then you have a freestanding form, right? And I put this together a number of times now, and I don't know if I've ever been able to repeat whatever success I had, right? The first time. It was designed with Matisse's Dancers. I don't know if you know that piece, right? It's sort of a cliche piece where the dancers are interlocked and they're going around a circle, right? There's a hilarious version of this right now. I saw in the New Yorker where they're practicing social distancing and dancing, right? Which is kind of fun, but could have just interlocking figures, right, as a solution to this thing. So let me see if I come up with some. So the idea was to have multiple pieces here, and like with this case, if something's starting to fall over, I could add another element, you see, to hold it up. And I thought, well, this might work as a way of creating multiple sculptures that you could walk around, right? You could put them together in any number of ways. I mean, it's up to you. There's enough going on here that a person could be pretty creative about how they wanted to configure these things. But you can see they interlock, and they could go together, like I said, in numerous ways, and you just have to figure out how to balance them, right? I know yesterday at one point I put them together, and just two of the pieces they held together. So another solution would be to create some sort of form that you could make multiples of, maybe vary it in terms of scale and color, shapes, things that will interlock. Basically a three-dimensional puzzle would be an interesting way to go. So there's just few of the ways, solutions that I've been working on, but I think I found something with this that I could actually make 5 or 6 pieces, 8 pieces that relate to one another, and then could set up in such a way to create a visual experience of walking through that space. So anyways, I'll post this up on YouTube, and so you can see it, and I'll let you know that it's there, of course. And I hope it's an inspiration of some sort. I had a ball doing these things, and not once did I worry about what was happening in the world while I was doing it. So as much as I hate to talk about art as therapy, it was very therapeutic. Okay, so thank you very much, and good luck with the project, and I look forward to see how you solve this problem. So the first step is to work through some thumbnails, make some prototypes, like this that that I've got going on here. I got lucky with the felt. It had this stuff available in the drawer, but you could paint the paper before you do it. I had some. Let me grab something real quick here. I'll come right back to the camera. Initially, I was going to use these photos and cut them up as part of the sculpture, and then I discovered that this material, and I thought, that's really colorful. It's kind of fun. It changes the whole aspect of the piece. They become a little less sophisticated, but really kind of fun to look at. So, and originally I was just going to cut the shapes out of these photographs, and then of course that means you could use, just about anything. Pictures out of magazines, portraits, whatever. Old drawings from a drawing class, or whatever you want to do. Create some patterns on the paper. Anything, whatever create interest. So think about those elements and principles to design, right? Form, texture, line, color, shape, form, all those things. Balance, you can see is probably the most important one for this project, and both visual and physical balance. So have some, literally, have some fun with it. This might be our last project for the semester. I'm not sure. We have about 4 or 5 weeks, right? 5 weeks to go, and so I want you to spend some time on your maquettes, before you commit to doing a series. Now, they don't all have to relate to one another. You could have 6 or 8 very different pieces. Many sculpture garden is filled with pieces that are very different from one another. You'll just have to decide how to arrange them so they make some sense. Okay, so anyway, hope you enjoy this project. So far I'm having a ball with it. So anyways, good luck. Thank you.